Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the future of the water and wastewater industry and the careers you didn't know about. And I'm your host, Dave Kosminski, and this is take number 2. You're never going to hear take number 1, but with me is special friend, Director of Engineering for Synder Civil Engineering right here in town, Mr. Zach Kuegler. So, hi, Zach. How are you?
Doing well. How about yourself?
All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming down. I appreciate it. So, again, the whole impetus of the podcast is to make students, younger individuals, aware of some of the careers that are available in the water industry. So, that being said, tell us a little bit about your day job.
Sure. So like you mentioned, I'm the Director of Engineering at the local company here in town, Synder Civil Engineering. And what we do there is a lot of engineering for water utilities across the state. So we get together and put plans together for various projects such as water pipelines, pump stations, water storage tanks, treatment systems, basically anything you could think of related to drinking water.
Uh-huh.
And we do the engineering, and then we also get to be involved with the construction as the projects get built to be a technical resource for the contractors.
Yeah, the construction division, that's fairly new to the organization, isn't that, in the last year or so?
Yep, you're right. We have Synder Civil Construction. Same thing. They specialize in doing construction work for water utilities, and it's a great team exercise to be able to work alongside them to get projects constructed.
Sure, exactly. Exactly. So, when, I know you work a lot with the local water utilities throughout the state. I know they're large ones, small ones. We have municipals and so forth. So, tell us about the different needs. And, before we do that, what forged your career into the engineering careers?
Sure. It's kind of a funny story. When I was in high school, getting towards the senior year and junior year, when you're looking to apply to schools, I really didn't have a great idea of what I wanted to do in life.
Uh-huh.
I definitely had certain interests and hadn't really done a good job of seeing what was out there. And one day my mom came home from work and she said, I was speaking with somebody at work and they mentioned, based on your interest, you like construction and earthwork, you should look at being a civil engineer. And I said, I don't really know what that is, but I started to look into it and it seemed interesting. And, I decided to pick my major based on that. And it turned out I loved it. And it was a great pick for me.
Great fit. Great.
Yeah.
Now, in the engineering arena, there are various types. How does civil engineering, kind of describe the types of engineers that there are? I know there are electrical engineers and civil. So tell us a little bit of differences between those.
Sure. So civil engineers focus a lot on kind of the public utilities that a lot of people deal with on a day-to-day basis, such as roads, the water and sewer utilities, storm drainage, and then buildings as another large component. So basically all the items that touch those things are related to civil engineering. And then we have a few subsets that most civil engineers fall into. So you have the civil or site civil engineers, which is the roadway, site plans. You've got structural engineers, which are doing the buildings. And then you have other folks like myself, which you could call hydraulic engineering, which are doing the water and whatnot, the physics behind that.
Sure. So, dealing with the water utilities, I know you guys got a great niche working with a lot of the state water utilities. So tell us a little bit, between the types of water utilities that you're dealing with. I know they're, for our listeners, we have the small, we're basically a small municipal system, but we have investor-owns and we have quasi-public. So tell us a little bit about the different needs of those.
Sure. So like you mentioned, we have, the gamut of different sizes of utilities, and each of those have different needs. We have very large utilities that we work for, private companies that have hundreds of water systems, and they have small water systems that feed 10 people up to very large systems that feed, 100,000 folks. And I think one of the best things I like about our job is the ability to work with each individual operator of those systems to get them what they're looking for. And the same thing goes with the smaller water companies. It's nice to say you've worked on a huge treatment plant, but to be able to work for a small water company or just an individual operator and give them what they're looking for to help their system run efficiently for them is really rewarding to see the satisfaction they get from a completed project.
Sure, and you can tailor your projects, your to the size of the water, the utility, and the needs and so forth. Now, obviously, a lot of the water utilities, from a standpoint of, I think most of them are dealing with groundwater sources. Is that pretty accurate there?
Yep, that's true. So we specialize a lot in the smaller groundwater facilities. We also do a lot of work with the larger surface water plants. Our company, we don't necessarily design the full treatment plant, but when you have a larger treatment plant over the course of its life, there's a lot of smaller upgrades that need to be done. You may replace an individual system that's part of the larger process.
Yes, depending on whether it's a class 2, class 3, or class 4 plant, as far as that goes. I mean, obviously that dictates a lot of what goes into a lot of the engineering needs that to make it compliant as far as that goes. So, when you get into a design project, how do you approach the design project? What's the process that you go through as far as that goes? Meeting with the utilities or what?
Yep, the most important thing to start out was understanding the client's needs and what their objective is of the project. So, kind of going back to your previous comment about the different styles of companies, there's companies that we do dozens of projects for a year, and it's pretty easy to understand what their standard is.
Yep.
But you may have a newer client that you only do a few projects a year, or it's your first project, and you really need to hone in and understand what they're looking for. So we typically start our projects out with an alternatives analysis or a report phase. So the client comes to us, they say, we have this particular issue or some objective we want to solve, and we came to you as a consulting engineer, as a technical expert, how should we handle that? And before we jump right into a design and start going down the wrong path, we'll kind of weigh out the options, compare what the pros and cons are of each option, maybe evaluate some options that they weren't thinking of previously. And then a big driver to everything is cost. So
budget, yes.
Yeah, what is each cost or each alternative cost, and how does that play into the utilities budget and the impact to the customers?
Sure, and in your role as director of engineering at Synder, what does that entail? How many other engineers basically are you working on over?
Sure. So we have a team of about 10 engineers. We've got a good variety of different folks. We have 2 land surveyors that work on getting our site mapping together, and then we have the rest of our group is split up between folks that do engineering in the office for the most part each day.
Yep.
Those folks are doing, the actual engineering, some calculations. They're doing the CAD drafting and AutoCAD to prepare drawing sets. They'll also do the engineering reports to present everything to the client. And then we also have a group of, they're typically the younger engineers who are out in the field on sites as the representative for the water company and for our engineering firm. And they get to be on site pretty much every day there's work going on, and they get to be a technical resource if the contractor has questions about the plans. They review the work that's going on in the field to make sure it meets the requirements of the project and make sure it gets built right.
So they're kind of the inspectors out there.
Exactly.
I see. And now when you get into, working on developing these plans and so forth, and depending on whether it's a water, a groundwater source or a surface source, obviously, as you said, there's a lot of criteria that go in, and one of the most important thing, obviously, is budget, and so forth. So developing the budget now, when you're working with a utility, especially the larger utilities and so forth, you have to meet with their financial people first to say, okay, hey, what are we dealing with as far as for budget, and go from there.
Yeah, typically we may not meet directly with the financial people, but those larger utilities spend a lot of time on planning, and they try and, plan projects years out based on their budget so that they're not over budgeting on things.
Yeah.
There are plenty of times, when we have emerging contaminants coming up where a utility may come across something that they didn't have previously budgeted for work for a certain site or to address a certain treatment system. Yep. But they have to rework their budget to make sure that the money's going where it needs to go to stay in compliance and be
Right.
proactive with their water systems.
So what's the hot emerging contaminant now?
The emerging contaminant is PFAS.
How did I know you were going to
Yeah.
say that? Yeah, I think that's one of the driving factors. I mean, you've going to a lot of the EPA seminars and the Connecticut section seminars, and those are one of the things that drive water utilities to stay in compliance. Obviously, is to adhere to a lot of the regulatory obligations and so forth. That can be very onerous, especially if you're dealing with a small utility. So PFAS, those are obviously issues that are some utilities deal with it, have it. Some utilities don't. What's the if you go around the state, are most utilities affected with that now?
I believe most utilities in one way or another are affected. Like you mentioned, it can be hit or miss on whether one system has it or one doesn't. But
Yep.
the impacts can be pretty great. Like we mentioned, when you have a small water system that only feeds 10 people and you find it there, well, those 10 people are just as important as everybody else. So
Oh, absolutely.
the utility ends up having to spend quite a bit of money to put a treatment system in for those folks. But
Sure.
I think they all recognize it's worth it and needed.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, how long have you been with the company? I know I had Don on; he was one of my earlier guests and so forth, and I know when he first started, he was working out of his house,
Yeah.
and so forth. So, how long have you been with it?
I've been with the company, geez, it flies by, but 11 or 12 years.
Okay.
I think I started with him about 6 months after he started.
Is that right?
Yep.
Wow.
And we started, just like you said, humble beginnings above his garage.
Yeah, yeah.
Just working out of that as the home base.
And look at where you are now. I mean, we've got your staff and construction, engineering, okay, the inspections, the whole 9 yards as far as that goes. I think again, you're very, very well known in the water industry, both on the investor side, the municipal side, as well as the quasi public side. So going back to engaging younger students, what advice would you give to a student to when they're kind of forging their careers?
Sure. I'd say what helped me for kind of understanding what's out there is just getting experience. After my freshman year in college, not typically a time when students are getting internships, I was pushed by my parents to try and find something, and my first year was difficult for me.
Yeah.
Going through classes and not having much to apply it to.
Yeah.
But I found after that first summer where I was able to see, where all that work was going to go towards when I, completed my work, it really helped me in the classroom to be more engaged. And also being in the field, I was able to apply things real time as I was learning to the field that I was working in. It helped me retain the information. So I definitely say, see what's out there, see if you can, get an internship or work a little bit, shadow somebody to see what interests you, because there's a ton that's out there, and there's definitely a need in the water industry with, like we talked about, emerging contaminants, and it's a very technical field, and it takes a lot of folks to make the world go round.
And emerging retirements.
Yeah.
That's another issue that, again, we're trying to address. So in your course selections, what was your favorite course in college?
That's a good question. I really like the water-related classes. I think hydraulic engineering, which deals a lot about the mechanics behind how water moves, whether it's being pumped or gravity flow through pipes. That was very interesting to me. I think it's kind of a mysterious thing. I know a lot of folks in the industry, you get a lot of real-world experience, and you know how water moves based on what you've experienced, but to be able to see the mathematics behind it, really gives a good foundation, and it made it really interesting.
Absolutely. And now, when you started, were there many environmental classes in the curriculum?
There are. I got a minor in environmental engineering, so I ended
okay.
up taking a few classes on water pollution and air pollution.
Okay.
And you do, as just a basic civil engineer, you do have to take a intro to environmental engineering.
Right, right,
to
right.
give you the basics.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, I know you guys have, quite a few younger engineers are they all in the civil engineering realm, or are they all, tell us a little about some of your younger folks that you supervise.
Sure. So most of them are engineering and civil. We do have some folks because kind of water is a little bit of a hybrid uh, discipline. We do have some folks with environmental engineering majors and minors like myself. And then we do have some folks that went to very strong technical schools such as Central Connecticut, which have good construction management programs, and
Hmm.
those skills come in handy quite a bit as well.
Sure.
Construction, I think it gets a connotation around it that it's more of a simpler profession, but I think what we've realized with Snyder Civil Construction is it's just as technical as engineering, and if not more technical with the amount of coordination and planning that goes into it.
Well, especially, from a construction end versus a design end, and you've probably experienced this throughout your careers. A lot of times, what you design on the paper, okay, when you actually get out in the field, sometimes it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting those issues, and that part of being able to go out and see the physical parameters as far as what the job is and how it's going to be applied and so forth, because design is one thing, but constructing it and making it work is another thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talk about that all the time. The ability for us to be there and address things that come up in real time is very important, because it's a difficult thing to try and package everything that's going to happen during a construction job into a plan set and have it be 100% accurate. There's always going to be
A change order.
a change order, things you didn't foresee that come up. There's things buried underground that you don't know about, or in the world today, you may not be able to get the material that you specified, and you got to rework how you planned your piping or
Sure.
whatnot in the building. So
Sure. Yeah. Speaking of that, tell us a little bit about how the supply chain and COVID impacted your business.
Sure. So the biggest thing we saw was lead time issues with a lot of our equipment. Where previously we knew we had to be concerned with particular items such as generators or pumps, the kind of more technical items, we started to see across the board it'd be difficult to get pipe, basic valves, pretty much everything you had to consider that could be hard to get. So
Mm-hmm.
it really changed a lot about how we operate. We got a lot more open to other materials and manufacturers to be able to keep projects going. And really just planning became a huge thing.
Yeah.
Try and get things ordered early, try and get them in your hands so that you have them
Right.
when you need them. There's the days of running to the supply house to grab things the same day or the week of.
Yeah. A lot of
Can't
times.
count on it.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just not there. I think that has infected, not only the water industry, but I think it's affected every industry. I know here at the music store, some things you can get, some things you can't.
Mhm.
And it's just a fact of the matter. It's the nature of the beast right now, but it's getting better. And hopefully things will start getting, I think pretty much back to normal and going from there. But I think everybody is had to readjust to that, business model, to accommodate, those setbacks, if you would, to go from there. So anyway, great. On a personal side, what do you like to do? I mean, what do you do for recreation, or what are you into?
Sure. So I really like being outdoors, going hiking, and doing something physical outside. And then the other thing I like to do is kind of take the pleasure of doing some engineering and construction on my own house. I
Ah,
enjoy remodeling and kind of improving things in that nature. And it's a similar thing. It's a great way to do something hands-on and
yeah.
take the engineering that you put on the paper and I'm not building pump stations at home, but you kind of get to,
Well, you get to get your hands dirty,
yep.
and so forth, and make it all happen. So where do you like to hike? You like to hike, in Connecticut, out of Connecticut,
Yeah, I like to explore everywhere. Connecticut's got some great areas in the northwest corner where I'm from,
Mm-hmm.
along the Appalachian Trail. There's a ton of state parks up there as well,
Okay.
People's
Yeah.
State Forest. And then it's always a pleasure to head up to the, the premium areas like New Hampshire around Mount Washington or
Yep.
northern Maine. There's just a ton of great areas to explore.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay, so one of the questions I always ask. Okay, if you're stuck on a desert island, what food could you eat every day?
Oh, probably peanut butter.
Peanut
It's
butter.
energy dense.
Stick to
Tastes
your
great.
ribs.
Yeah.
Now, are you into the traditional P&Js?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. All right. And the other thing, as you know, my musical background. What's your favorite type of music? What music are you into?
I could listen to anything. I think a lot of my music interest comes from rock music that I enjoyed listening to growing up, but country music is great, classic country music.
Okay. Have you gone to any concerts at all?
I have. I think the best concert I've been to recently is Chris Stapleton.
Oh,
It was
okay.
a few years ago, but him and his wife are both really talented and put on an
Phenomenal.
amazing show.
He's a phenomenal writer, and I think prior to him and his wife going out and actually performing, he has written songs for I think everybody in the country genre of music, and I'm glad he's out there performing. He does a great show, and he's an awesome guitar player, awesome singer. So anyway, fantastic. So okay, well, I think basically from that standpoint, I think other interests in the water industry. Obviously, we're just kind of getting these podcasts out to our guidance counselors into the high school and the college arenas, because there are, as you know, and it's not just our industry, but I think every industry is experiencing a brain drain as far as what we call the gray tsunami, or in my case, the bald tsunami. As far as that goes, retirements are going to affect our industry. Statistically, what do you find that on most of the folks that what's the average age of the engineers now that you're dealing with?
The engineers are definitely a younger crowd, especially at our company. And just like you mentioned, there's a lot of really knowledgeable folks that are older in the industry that are retiring, especially when they see the stresses of trying to get projects done in the COVID world and
Yep.
whatnot, and how everything's ramping up. We're definitely seeing a lot of that knowledge leaving the industry, and I think we've kind of realized that it's up to us as the younger generation to learn as much as we can from them and take all that good knowledge that they've gained over the years and try and carry it through.
Sure. And I know one of the things that Donnie has done, starting Civil, so he has hired a lot of retired folks from various water utilities, and those are basically. It's a great move because there's a lot of knowledge base there that you can learn off of, and tutor the younger engineers and so forth, and not only in those practices, but also getting familiar with the types of water utilities. So
Definitely, yeah. Those personalities are huge to have because as new as a problem may seem to you, they've probably tackled it 4 or 5 times at least. So.
Yep. Been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. All right, Zach. Hey, appreciate you coming down, bud, and so forth. But from there, we are going to get you. Probably get. I'm going to see if we can get a couple of your draftsmen up there. If we can get.
Absolutely.
Yeah, have to see if I can twist Tom Keyser's arm to come down here and tell him. I know he is. His career has gone a few different paths, and he's keeping busy up there for sure. Anyway, but that's great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode of the Careers You Didn't Know About and the Future of the Water and Wastewater Industry. I'm your host, Dave Kosminski, and with us in the studio is Mr. Zach Kuegler of Synder Civil Engineering. So, Zach, thank you so much. Have a great holiday and a safe New Year's, and thanks for coming down.
Thank you. You as well.